And now we get to the plot. In the prologue, Miranda and Tim have their little conversation about Shepard being special because of them being the last living Prothean, and now they need to make sure Shepard survives because only they have the Prothean beacon visions. It's not because they're a hero or a symbol or whatever. It's because they believe their visions will be intrinsically related to stopping the Reapers and thus saving the galaxy. And then we cut to Shepard and the Normandy busy scouting out the planet Alcara, checking out some intel. Since Shepard's trying to find intel on the Reapers, he thought the best bet would be to contact the most powerful information broker in the galaxy, the Shadow Broker. However, the intel he got from the Shadow Broker was a trap, all to lure the Normandy so the Collectors could destroy them. This intel was also intercepted by Cerberus, and they were quickly dispatched to save the Normandy. The attack scene is the same as before. The Normandy gets torn up, but Shepard gets hit from behind by the Collector's beam attack, blasting and damaging their suits, pushing them into the escape pod. Joker doesn't know what to do, so puts him in one of those sleeper stasis pods. Then the events of Mass Effect Redemption are slightly changed as the escape pod gets found, then later captured by mysterious mercs hired by the Shadow Broker. Cerberus and Liara end up picking up and saving Joker. Liara goes in search of Shepard, meets Farron, and Cerberus eventually gets Shepard back. The Lazarus Project starts up, and Joker ends up watching over Shepard. This explains why Joker joins Cerberus. However, during this time, human colonies start disappearing. The first mission is Lazarus Station. There's no real big change. You meet up with Zaid, who tries hacking a door with his gun. The door jams, so he blows it up with his grenades, which makes him plot integral. We can then hack terminals, finding evidence that Wilson was working for the Shadow Broker. Grrr, Shadow Broker! Now, Lair of the Shadow Broker becomes a story of revenge for Liara and Shepard twice over. We then meet up with Wilson, where you have two paths. You can run to the shuttle bay or run to where Miranda was being held. As a renegade option, you can just kill Wilson. As a Paragon option, you can pump him for info. You can then hack more terminals and acquire some CD Cerberus data, organic, or tech upgrades. And finally, we meet up with Miranda. If you already killed Wilson, you'll get some favor from Cerberus. If not, Wilson will quickly fire on her, but Miranda will crush him. And there will be a Paragon interrupt where you can physically or biotically push Wilson or tech disable him, but Miranda will still kill him by biotically crushing his neck. We have our first meeting with Tim, which is an entire plot point, and we're just having a conversation. We can argue about Akuz, even if we weren't even there. We can argue about Thorian Creepers, husks, and Rachni. And for Mass Effect 1, argue about Rear Admiral Kahoku with some extra commentary for actually doing those missions in Mass Effect 1. Tim will explain Shepard's wasting his time investigating bogus intel and cleaning up Geth, and that the Cerberus has the intel that Shepard needs to stop the Reapers. And eventually Shepard agrees to help out Tim to at least check out Freedom's progress, but the player can say they aren't following them after that. Before venturing off to Freedom's progress, we can talk to Zaid and Miranda. Miranda will just be pro-Cerberus, and Zaid will talk about the good and bad stories of them, and even give Shepard some secret Cerberus intel. On Freedom's Progress, we have our first encounter with Tali. If you got Tali's Geth data in Mass Effect 1, Tali will give you a big hug, and you'll end up getting favor for the Quarians. You can then assign Tali, Zaid, or Miranda as a handler, and doing so will give you favor toward Quarians or Cerberus. Of course, Praza objects, but you can charm or intimidate him, and he falls in line, but only if you got enough PR points from your Mass Effect 1 import. You can then assign Praza to lead the second fire team, and assign his 2 Quarian Marines to it, and 1 to scout role. The scout gives us a secret location on the map for some disabled Geth technology. We then have our first encounter with Legion, who promptly runs away. As the Geth get taken out, Legion retreats back to the Ymir mech and hacks it. If he didn't properly influence Praza, his entire squad dies. We can then have our first conversation with Legion if we so choose. We then meet up with Vitor. This nets us some collector intel. If you give Vitor to Tali, Tali is happy. If you give Vitor to Tali and PR influence Praza, well, they're both happy. If you give Vitor to Tali and PR influence Praza and Mass Effect 1 Geth data dialogue, then, well, lot of happy going on. If you keep Vitor, Tali isn't happy but accepts your choice. If you keep Vitor and PR influence Praza, she'll understand the choice. If you keep Vitor and PR influence Praza and the Mass Effect 1 Geth data dialogue, she'll acknowledge your choice and be comfortable you're in charge. While we're about to leave, we then have our encounter with Samara. She has to fight with you in order to see whether you're worthy or not. You can either fight her as she requests, charm your way out of it, or have a renegade choice and have everyone fight her at once. She then swears herself to your service. Samara asks for our scanner and hardsuit recordings, as she said she was looking for someone. We can then ask her about this someone and go on a side quest, but ultimately find nothing. The act ends with Shepard meeting Joker on the new unfinished SR2. He goes to the captain's cabin, gets into bed, and has the first dream communication with the Collector General. Shepard wakes up from the nightmare to find Samara standing over his bed, where she explains the connection they share, the slave crown, and Shepard's heightened ability to sense Prothean relics throughout the universe. She then asks several ethical questions on the behavior of how she should deal with the issues of others in relation to their mission. Yup, yet another plot point where all we do is argue with Tim. If Vitor was taken on the Normandy, Cerberus likes you more. A series of arguments with Tim will break out, about coups, corporal tombs, even the Cerberus intel that you may have gotten from Zaid. Shepard will acknowledge Cerberus is the only one doing anything, but that doesn't excuse what they've done in the past. Tim explains the several dozen probes he launched into the Omega-4 relay and that only one sent back data that didn't get destroyed due to drift got through via the sister relay before being unknowingly destroyed. There are 3 large structures: the Collector base with its 1 cruiser, a large derelict Reaper in the debris field surrounded by a large Geth presence, and what appears to be the construction of a massive mass relay called the Reaper Relay. Shepard argues that we should go to the Council or the Alliance with this intel. Tim continues stating that if he releases this data to the public, there would be wild-scale panic, or even worse, the Citadel or Alliance will get it and release the story they want to tell. He will also inform Shepard that the Alliance and Citadel abandoned them, while Cerberus spent all the time keeping them alive. Shepard can argue further, saying it was Cerberus' fault for hiding him from everyone, and the Citadel and Alliance didn't have a choice. Now the player has the option of controlling the railroading. Shepard comes up with a way to deal with Cerberus called the Cerberus Angle. You can decide to help Tim, which create a pro-Cerberus plan, and Shepard agrees with Tim and helps promote Cerberus' agenda. You can decide to agree to Tim's terms, which is a neutral Cerberus plan. You agree to work with Tim, but don't really promote or discourage Cerberus. You can decide to play along, but ultimately overthrow Tim. This is an anti-Tim plan. Shepard agrees to work with him, but is secretly planning his demise. Or you can decide to play along to help Tim, but don't have an undermining of the other groups, civilizations, or factions. This is a unified galaxy plan. Shepard also acquires the Suicide Mission Intel plan, which is how to deal with the Collector Cruiser, the base, the Reaper Relay, and the Derelict Reaper. Shepard now has the choice of either deciding to follow the plan of destruction, which is destroy all 4 obstacles, or follow the plan of recovery, which is to acquire them all. At this point, plot progression is now completely dependent on Shepard and his intel sources. Shepard becomes an active protagonist, meaning the player must figure out the plot by acquiring intel on where to go next. Tim is essentially out of the picture, and Cerberus ends up being another faction to deal with. Miranda becomes the Cerberus rep, as well as your Cerberus information broker. And then starts our choice of main plot missions to take in any order: Tuchanka, the Citadel, Korlus, or a Geth Station. While exploring Tuchanka's solar system, we pick up more remnants of the Leviathan of Dis. This provides the missing intel on the defunct Klendagan weapon research. We can now start a very long research project that only Zaid can initiate, since he's the weapons expert. We meet Rex or Reeve and have a mission to infiltrate Okir's base. So we assign Rex or Reeve to the fire team, some Krogans to his team, and an Aeronaut scout to the scout position. We eventually meet up with Rana Thanoptis and can assign her to a role, such as tech expert or paramedic escort. We can then recruit her on the Normandy if we so choose. We then discover Okir has been using Quarian slaves to get his work done, as well as for defense. We can choose to incapacitate the Quarians, which nets us Quarian favor, or kill them. If we didn't save Rex, then Reeve won't listen to you in suggesting to use non-deadly force. Once both teams make it to Okir's lab, we team up with Rex or Reeve and take him down. We can decide to take his legacy, forcing him to come with us, or have Ernat protect it, but that involves making him part of the clan, which involves fighting Uvenk, and is part of Okir's backstory. Now, why do we need Omega? We have the Citadel. It just got shut up from Mass Effect 1, and we already have seedy places like the Wards. Why do we need an entire other space station with a crime boss who serves virtually no purpose? So we get to the Wards and meet up with Mordin. He's trying to cure a Collector virus, but he can't. Luckily, Shepard's Cipher is reacting after he got infected and figures out the cure for Mordin, or at least puts Mordin on the right path. The mission's very similar, save we have to go save his assistant, Dr. Michelle. As a subplot, we contact Emily Wong, and she's trying to get the scoop on the virus that's killing off specific non-human aliens. We end up meeting up with Garrus, and depending on how you've dealt with him in Mass Effect 1, he becomes a top CSEC agent, or a Spectre. We can then assign him to a mission role, as well as Dr. Michelle, and Captain Bailey can work as our handler. We then ultimately recruit Mordin, and can pick up our CSEC rep and Night Watch rep. So on Korlus, we replace Krogans with Geth and Okir with Daro Zen. We pick her up, and we can also pick up the Vanguard rep. To help us fight the Collectors, we need more tech, and to upgrade our ship. Intel has shown us there's a Reaper relic on board a Geth Station. We end up having our second encounter and meeting with Legion, and you acquire some intel on Geth and Collector shield tech. Going through the Geth databases, you also acquire some intel on Samara's backstory. After meeting and finally recruiting Legion, we need to cut off his connection to the true Geth with Darozen's help. If we don't do that, Legion stays in the brig, and not the AI core. Instead of going to Horizon, we're headed to Feros. Yes, what better way to make us care for nameless humans than to actually make their fate one of our choices from the previous game? Feros is on the fringe of Citadel space, so it's not too unbelievable that the Collectors would attack there. It's also one of the more famous colonies Shepard was on, and along with the Virmire Survivor, would attract the Collectors. Now, if you saved and persuaded Zhang from Mass Effect 1, the colony developed and there are more people on Feros. This cranks up the challenge, but also slows down the Collector's schedule. There's also more resources, terminals, people, and equipment to tag as a result, which means more PR points to acquire as well. You also get to assign roles to the Virmire Survivor, Elizabeth Bainham, Shiala if she's alive, and yes, Liara's here. She decided to join the colony on Feros because Feros is a Prothean megalopolis, and she's been busy trying to figure out how to stop the Reapers. The gameplay consists of chasing down colonists and knocking them out, or killing them, as they try to evacuate onto Collector shuttles. This gets a little crazy as colonists are caught in the crossfire while the Collectors are trying to kill you. Thus you're changing from chase to defending game modes, swapping guns and ammo for lethal and non-lethal attacks. Also a very big role for your paramedic escort, and as such you can assign more than one. There's also the tower scene that has to configure the Guardian lasers that actually act as lasers. And yes, you have to defend the tower, not run around while the Collectors target you. After the tower is defended, you then have to mop up the remaining Collector forces as they try and escape. This is a great time to use your scout's ability to paint targets to provide fire support from the Normandy. Once the Collectors are in orbit, they get attacked by the Normandy, and depending on how well upgraded the Normandy is, depends on how much damage you can do on the cruiser before it escapes, and how much damage it does to the Normandy. Aside from the Collector weapon you found and need to research, and a few pieces of Geth and Collector weapons and defenses intel, you can acquire the followers of Vigil Rep, who happens to be Shiala if she's alive, and if not, a cool Hanar dude. The Virmire Survivor was sent to Feros to see if Cerberus was involved in such attacks in colonies. Their mission was also to return Shepard to the Citadel to stand trial.